Welcome into episode number 119 of Greatest Pod in the South. I'm Neil McCready, JG Tate, Gabe DeArmond with me here as well on a Sunday afternoon. We hope you are enjoying your weekend. Stands to reason half of you are, half of you aren't. That's sort of the way it works. Your team either sucks or is awesome right now with no in between, which is a good thing. It means college football is happening. We'll talk about the weekend that was, the weekend that will be, and whatever else might come up here on the big show. It is a show brought to you by Automation and Control Systems, LLC, ACS owned by Clay McNutt in Baldwin, Mississippi. He is the Beast of Baldwin. Established in 2013, ACS is a complete electrical control system solution provider and a Rockwell Automation recognized system integrator. They've got a full-time dedicated emergency service and troubleshooting staff and a UL 508A panel shop. They can custom tailor software packages, custom design electrical control panel solutions, and much more. ACS is a full-service AutoCAD services provider and a full-service fiber optic cabling solution provider. So if you're in need of custom HMI and SCADA solutions or large horsepower VFD specialist, ACS has you covered. ACS can service and install Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley, Siemens, ABB Square D, and many other manufacturers. For more information or to get in touch with ACS, go to acsllcms.com or call 662-601-4381. I'm coming to you from the Clark Ford Studios. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. That number, call it, ask for Corey Clark, and tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line, no hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest is completely up to you. Again, 662-257-1900. Jay, Gabriel, how are you all?
It sure is great to be here sharing the internet waves with Gabriel DeArmond and Neil McCready, two of my more favorite posters in all of the Rivals universe. Gabe, word.
What's going on, guys? Neil, you said half the people are happy and half of them are mad. On this show, I think just pretty much everyone's probably mad this week. Anybody watching this, because like my people are okay. They didn't lose this week, and everybody else is pissed off.
Why don't you get your COVID situation under control, Gabriel?
Well, it's funny. It hasn't yet. Like the whole SEC schedule is getting moved around, and Missouri's involved in all of it, but none of it's their fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Florida and Vanderbilt.
You're passing the blame. I get it.
There's no karma going around in Dan Mullen's world right now.
Talking smack about we need to fill up the stadium like Texas A&M did, and then he has a bunch of Gators test positive, and I believe he's tested positive now, right?
Yeah, yesterday. The best one I saw was Dan Mullen's quote about filling up the swamp, and then the meme of Jordan saying, and I took that personally.
What's funny is, his wife greets all of the players before every game with like a big hug and a kiss and all that stuff. And so now Dan's got it, which makes you wonder if Megan has it, since presumably they live in the same house. And she kissed all the players, and then they had a breakout. Then Dan gets it. So you wonder if the source was Megan.
Yeah, the Auburn people don't wonder if Megan was the source, if you know what I mean, because the Cam Newton situation, folks here are still a little bit sore about how that went down, and the unnamed source familiar with Mississippi State's recruiting back in the day is widely believed in these circles to be Megan Mullen. So,
interesting.
Yeah,
let's give me a little more detail there. I'm curious. Kind of fill me in. I'm vaguely familiar with what you're saying.
You don't remember that?
Not, man. I think my brain just kind of cycles things out after a while.
There's enough SEC recruiting scandals to go around that sometimes you forget the older ones.
There was a story, I think it was in ESPN, and it credited an unnamed source familiar with Mississippi State recruiting to say that Auburn had offered they had heard Cecil Newton talking about how Auburn had offered a deal that they just couldn't turn down.
Oh, was this the Pete Thamel story?
Yes. I say ESPN. That may not have been ESPN.
Pete and Dan at least were at the time super tight.
Oh, I'm shocked to hear that. But everybody assumed it was Megan Mullen who was the source familiar with Mississippi State recruiting. I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't really care. I mean, it's the story did what it did, and Cam Newton got off, and Auburn won a national title, and that's that. And everybody that said Cam will never come back to campus. Well, Cam was back on campus a year later and finished his degree, and he's now an Auburn graduate. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that were wrong about that deal right there. Just saying. I don't hear any comments from either of you all about that.
After covering an NCAA investigation that went on for like 12 years, I can't remember all the other NCAA investigations. I'm glad I'm no longer covering one.
I just commend Cam and every other SEC player that ever played for free.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe.
Well done, kids.
I mean, you think the NCAA, they send a flotilla of 6 people to come down here and investigate everything, including his underwear, and they can't find anything. Never found anything.
Because all the money been spent on the defensive line, right?
Here we go. Oh, goodness gracious.
They got good hiders in the SEC.
Hiders. I'm a professional hider, sir. That's what I do for a living. I know I told some stories on the show last week. I just want to make a clarification. I don't want to go back through them, but they involved a girl that I was pursuing in 8th grade during a trip, and subsequently after a trip to Worlds of Fun in suburban Kansas City, an area that Gabe is familiar with because he once held an annual pass there, right, Gabe?
I did, yeah.
Anyway,
still live like 15 minutes away.
I wish I lived that close to a real amusement park, but then maybe it wouldn't have mattered. You would have gotten used to it, desensitized to it. Yeah. Like the kids that live in Kissimmee, you're like, oh, man, you live so close to Disney, dude. That's awesome. And then you live there and you go twice and you go, this sucks, I'm bored.
Yeah, a little bit.
Anyway, so I told the story that I thought my girlfriend had her shorts sewed on because I never could figure out how to get in there because there wasn't a button or anything. And I had some people email me and say, JG, you ought to be quiet about stuff like that because I'm sure your wife doesn't know. And I'm like, I disclosed that a long time ago to Courtney. I thought it was a trick that maybe she could use to help her, the situation with our daughter. But yeah, Courtney knows all these stories. Don't for a minute think that Courtney's going to tune into this show and be like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like I tell her all this. She knows all this.
Further, wouldn't it be kind of weird if Courtney at this point in your relationship together, you all been together for 20 plus years. You're both in your 40s, correct? You've raised a child who is now 19, I believe. I mean, it would be sort of odd if all of a sudden, Courtney, let's just say hypothetically that this story about you and the girl with the sewn-on shorts was new to her, but the novel story to her. The words 8th grade probably would have classified it as that's not something I'm all that concerned about right now, given that you would have been 13 or 14 at the time. I'm sure she would say, I think I will let something that happened 3.5 decades ago before I knew who he was. I think I will let that pass.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But different people have different value systems, Neil, and I think there are people that would get fussed about something like that. But Courtney is not one of those people, nor am I. I wish she had more tawdry stories. She doesn't have many.
What type of people, though, would get upset about a very failed makeout session at the age of 13?
That wasn't even my worst one either. I actually tried to bargain for a friendship French one time, but I think we've talked about that one. That's bad. That was really bad. I actually talked about that on Reddit one time. I just wanted to be shamed for that. I deserve to be shamed for that, actually. So that went over well. This weekend, guys, of football, Gabriel had a pretty easy weekend, actually. How did Missouri's game go, Gabe?
It was COVID 1, Missouri and Vanderbilt 0.
The Vanderbilt got a tie.
Yeah. Florida also 0 and 0 for next weekend when it was supposed to be Missouri. So they're changing a game for every interception that Matt Corral throws. So
got him. I couldn't believe what was happening in that Ole Miss game, though. Seriously. I mean, we covered, Neil and I did, a game in 2005, I believe it was. Oh, no, you might have been gone by then. But Brandon Cox got picked off 5 times against Georgia Tech, his first start for Auburn. And I thought, I'll never see this again. And sure enough, Matt Corral gets picked 6 times against the Arkansas Razorbacks. I was on your stream, so I was watching this happen live, and your people were just aghast. They couldn't believe it. And they were clamoring for John Reese Plumlee. Am I right?
Yeah, they want Plumlee, and it's mind-boggling to me. And it's the difference between fandom and just watching it. When you're watching it, you're like, well, very clearly Odom is throwing a look at him that he can't figure out. And frankly, maybe Kiffin can't figure it out either, or can't figure it out enough to explain it to Corral to where Corral can get through it. Because he's starting to throw, like the last pick that he threw, there were 3 dudes all wearing red shirts between him and the next white shirt guy. So, I mean, he very clearly is not seeing the field at that point.
No, if the guy who picked it hadn't picked it, like there was going to be another guy to pick it behind him. Like,
yeah,
and
I
that's
don't know.
one.
That guy was pissed off that the ball didn't get to him.
That's one you've got to go check into whether your quarterback is colorblind at that point by the end of that day. I mean, but Neil and I were talking before you got on here, Jay. Like, look, the most amazing thing is he threw 6 picks and they still had a chance to win that game. Lane Kiffin lost that game because he kept going for 4th downs and he refused to kick field goals. If he just takes points, Matt Corral might go win that game in the last 5 minutes.
I don't think so. It's 2 things. One is that Kiffin will tell you that he coaches off that card. Card says if you're 4th and at certain point, down, whatever, you go for it. He coaches off that card, and he goes, and sometimes it's going to be, you guys are going to criticize me, and it's going to be fine. And sometimes I'm going to do it, and you're going to be criticizing me, and it's going to work. And like that happened twice to me yesterday, where I was like, well, there's a reason I'm not making $4 million to coach, and he is. But the other thing is, I don't think he completely trusted his defense. I mean, and why would you? They'd only surrendered like 8 million yards a game through the first 3 weeks of the season. They actually played pretty well yesterday on defense. They had a decent defensive game. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, and I've written about this yesterday, I'm writing about it today. Fans hate this. Kiffin's not coaching for right now. Kiffin's coaching for 2 years from now. My mic?
No, talking to Gabe.
Oh. Kiffin's coaching for 2022. He's wanting to present a product on the field. Keep in mind, we're all dealing with this where the coaches can't have recruits in. It's a dead period. So you don't get to sit down with the kid and watch film and go, here's what we're doing. You've got to put it on the screen. So he doesn't want to take Matt Corral out and go because he's recruiting this 4-star kid in Starkville that's a 2021 kid. He's recruiting Ty Simpson, Jason Simpson's son, the UT Martin coach. They're recruiting him. He's like a 4 or 5-star kid in the 2022 class, and they're recruiting the hell out of Arch Manning, a 2023 quarterback who the entire fan base will die if they don't get him. And he's a passer.
I hope they get him in that case.
I know it'd be, some sort of a genocide.
I mean,
but you know what I'm saying? So if the first thing you do is say, here's Matt Corral, who kept you in the Florida game, who beat Kentucky by himself, and who took Alabama into the middle of the 4th quarter. 1 week later, he has a horrible game against Arkansas. Yank, you're done. Next kid. I mean, that's not the message you want to send to future quarterbacks. And it shouldn't be the message you want to send to Corral, because it's possible that he's your guy for the next couple of years.
Understood. But I was facing something similar on the Auburn side. I mean, Bo Nix wasn't having quite as bad a day as Matt Corral was, but he was picked 3 times, and each one of South Carolina's touchdown drives was preceded by one of those interceptions. I mean, twice he gave USC like super short field, and the third one was like midfield. And they used that all to score 21 points. I mean, Nix by himself lost that game for Auburn yesterday. I mean, I'm just being real about it. I'm not one of those guys like, it's tough being out there and playing in the SEC. Neil was talking about that before the show, and I agree with you that it's tough to be a quarterback in the SEC right now. But there was not one second when Gus Malzahn or Chad Morris thought, I'm going to change quarterback. For the same reasons that you acknowledge right there. They have a 5th-year senior graduate transfer playing behind Bo Nix, and they're still not going to play him because, as Gus says, and like Lane Kiffin has surmised in his own head, like you were saying, we got a future here. And Matt Corral very likely is a part of that immediate future, and I'm not going to crush him right now. Bo Nix is definitely a part of Auburn's immediate future, and they're not going to crush him right now. You expect those kids to work through it.
These coaches don't spend 6 months in the offseason putting together a depth chart and then decide in 2 quarters, oh, everything I saw was wrong, man. He's not the best. He's the best guy they got, in their opinion. And look, Matt Corral and Bo Nix are both going to win their team a game sometime this year, right? They're going to be the reason that fans go, oh, my God, I love this kid. So yeah, coaches can't coach on emotion,
I feel like Matt Corral can bounce back a lot more easily than Bo. I just feel like our people really kind of don't like Bo Nix right now. And I know there's Ole Miss people that are like, Matt Corral really screwed the pooch yesterday. God dang, 6 6 picks, you know. But if he comes out and just totally tears it up in the next game, well, I guess that's going to be Auburn. Maybe not be a great example, but if he comes out against Auburn and plays great, I mean, I think most Ole Miss people will be like, woo, I'm back on the bandwagon. But if Bo Nix plays great against Ole Miss, it'll still be like 30 or 40% of people that are fired up about him. I don't know what the deal is.
That's because Auburn fans want their team to lose, Jay.
Well, that is kind of
true.
true.
Want their team to win.
That is kind of true, though.
So here's the thing with Corral, right? If you're Lane Kiffin publicly, you do what you did. You say, hey, he's my guy. This is the same guy that everybody was saying 3 weeks ago. The last 3 weeks was one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and we're going to have to learn from it, and blah blah blah. And you say all that stuff, and then behind closed doors, he's looking at the film with Corral, going, "What the f was that? What are you looking at?" I mean, but you got to learn from it, because if you're going to bail on a quarterback, the moment that a young quarterback has a bad game, and this was Matt Corral's 7th career start. It was his 5th career SEC start. 4 games this year, and he started against Arkansas and Oxford last year. So his 5th career start, his first stinker really as a starter where he was just bad.
Yeah.
And that's the big deal. Like these are 2 sophomores you guys are talking about. The flip side is in Knoxville, Jarrett Garantano, they go into the week and Pruitt is saying out loud, he plays like he did last week, I'm going to make a change, right? And he plays like he did last week. He looked terrible. They change. Next guy comes in, throws a pick on his first pass. They go back to Guarantano. But, like, that's a 5th-year senior. Pruitt's had 4 years to recruit over him and hasn't. Look, if Matt Corral's not any good, then Kiffin's going to recruit somebody better. And he's not going to be the starter as a senior.
He'll bring in a transfer quarterback in the right. I mean, that's why this is 0 for Lane Kiffin. It's where it's not for Jeremy Pruitt. To me, I was watching Tennessee yesterday, to your point, Gabe, and I kept thinking, how do you get this far into your program and this is your quarterback play?
And I'm looking at the Pro Football Focus numbers for Jarrett Guarantano yesterday. Holy cow. He graded at 29.8 on a scale of 1 to 100.
That's tough.
I mean, and Bo Nix, as bad as he played yesterday, and he had 3 picks, he was still in the 50 range. So this kid was way below that. Good golly. Dude, he's been below 50 the last 2 games.
What was Corral yesterday? It was bad, right?
Yeah. It's going to take me a minute to figure that one out. I got to work to it.
I just that was the thing that surprised me about Tennessee, is that for all the talk about the Vols being back, and we joke about whether the Vols are back or the Vols back, all that stuff, you're never going to get back with quarterback play like that. It's frankly, guys, it's the one thing that struck me about Georgia last night. Not to pick on Stetson Bennett, because he's a great story, and it's a story of perseverance and following your dreams and all of that stuff. There's a lot to be learned from that. But when you're Georgia and your goal is national championship or bust, and that's sort of where Kirby has put their program, and that's your quarterback, when you go to Alabama for this massive game, it's a head scratcher to me that's you have 8,000 linebackers on your roster, and you have all these edge guys that you've successfully recruited, and you can't get a quarterback.
That was the only difference in that game last night to me. Like, Georgia has the dudes to line up toe-to-toe with Alabama. I mean, Zamir White might not be Najee Harris, but he's a really good back. George Pickens might not be Devontae Smith, but he's a hell of a wide receiver. They have the guys all over the field. The difference in that game was Mac Jones versus Stetson Bennett, and that's it.
It blows me away. I honestly think Georgia's defense is faster than Alabama's, Alabama's defense is really good. I mean, they're both really good, but Georgia's defense swarms to the ball faster than anything I can remember, like recently. Just as a follow-up, one quick thing before I forget, Matt Corral graded at 27 yesterday, which, again, is atrocious. But he was good against Florida. He was exceptional against Kentucky, and he was pretty good against Alabama too. So this is more of an outlier, whereas Bo Nix, it's just kind of more of the same. Sorry, Gabriel.
No, I was just going to say that the Georgia defense, like a couple of those touchdowns they had good coverage. I mean, they were playing well, but when Mac Jones puts a ball in where only Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle can get it, and they're the 2 best receivers in the country, I mean, not much you can do.
PFF graded Stetson Bennett at 57-1, which is not good, but it's just your average bad game. It's not toilet game.
What was
like Warren? You're asking about Mac Jones?
Yeah.
He graded at 88.1, which is, really good. Anything above 85s was balling out. Anything over 90 is like, Tom Brady type stuff.
I thought his second half was just exceptional. He made just one good throw after another. Really one great throw after another. Big time plays. They trust him. I mean, that's kind of the point. I mean, it might be the reason. It will be the reason that if Alabama is successful the way I think they will be in winning the SEC, it'll come down to they were able to not only recruit one quarterback, they got two. I mean, they had Tua a year ago. I mean, this kid sat on their bench for 3 years waiting his turn.
Yeah. And I saw a deal that said he's got as many 400-yard games this year as Tua had in his whole career. And, people want to knock Mac Jones and say, well, he's only that good because of the weapons, right? I mean, dude, Tua had these same weapons plus Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs. I mean, you got good receivers, but good quarterbacks tend to have good receivers. That's kind of the way it works.
I just happened to be scrolling through PFF, and I noticed that the highest graded player at Mississippi State for yesterday's game was a backup quarterback. I don't know the story there.
Well, they
played 7 snaps.
They finally got away from Costello, I think, in large part because he looked like what I think you or I would look like if they put us back there at quarterback and said, "Okay, you're live." He looked terrified, and I don't blame him. A&M has some edge dudes, and Mississippi State plays like a team that hates each other. I mean, I can't decide who I think they hate more, each other or their coach.
Costello, dude, the backup played 22 snaps, and Costello played 38. So, I mean, I'm not saying it was even, but he must have come in, it wasn't like the one drive.
Well, he was dropping snaps, and, I mean, he was lost. I mean, he was getting crunched.
But here's what we learned about the SEC, right? There's one really good team, one team that can be really good on most nights, and then there's a bunch of other teams in Vanderbilt.
So I do this thing. I was telling Gabe, I was telling Gabe about this. I do this thing every week in 10 Thoughts where I rank the SEC 1 through 14, and I never cop out. I always do it. This day I copped the hell out. I went Alabama, Georgia, A&M, Florida, and then I just put huge fall. And I put tie for 5th. I put Kentucky, Carolina, Arkansas, Auburn, and Tennessee. And then tied for 10th, I put Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU, Mississippi State 13th, Vanderbilt 14th. Tell me where I'm wrong. How do you sort those teams? They're all the damn same. You can throw them in a basket, and they're all exactly the same.
You didn't cop out compared to – I would have done one Alabama, 2 Georgia, tied for 3rd, everybody else, 14th Vanderbilt. Those are my rankings. Because on any given day, Auburn is as likely to beat Ole Miss and Missouri as it is to lose to those teams. LSU, same thing. A&M, same thing. Nobody knows, man. Especially in this – I think it's parity, but it's also this year and everybody not having an off season.
Well, it makes it fun. First of all, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, it's a really interesting, I guess you call it middle of the pack. Hell, it's damn near most of the conference, but it makes it fun. I mean, you go into every game and not really sure what the hell to expect. I mean, yesterday I would have thought Ole Miss would pound Arkansas, but I also didn't expect Matt Corral to get picked 6 times. It's just the way things go.
I thought Ole Miss would win, but I thought it would be close. And when the line kept moving down from 3 to 2.5 to 2 to 1.5 to 1, I was like, it tells you that money's coming in on Arkansas from smart people. And this thing
that wasn't as big a surprise as Kentucky and Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Kentucky just took Tennessee out behind Neyland Stadium.
Yes, and I grew up Kentucky and Louisville, believe it or not, but the last time Kentucky won at Tennessee was 1984, man. That was about around the time I was negotiating those shorts to come off that never came off. I mean, that's a long time, dude, and I've seen a lot of UK losses in Knoxville, and for that to be the one that breaks it 34-7 with 2 pick sixes.
Kentucky finally figured out the stitching on the pants, man.
All right, I'm curious to get you guys' thoughts on this. I guess, have either one of you looked at betting lines yet for this week coming up?
No, when I looked this morning, they weren't out.
Okay, well, they're out now, so we'll get your guesses. Auburn and Ole Miss is I think it's still an 11 a.m. game, right?
It is, yes.
Okay. What would you guess is the opening line on Auburn Ole Miss?
Ole Miss 4.
Where's it at?
In Oxford.
Okay. What'd you say, Jay?
I say 4.
Ole Miss by 4?
Yeah.
I say Auburn by 5.5.
Gabe is much, much, much closer to the fact. Auburn is a 9.5 point favorite for Ole Miss.
Are you kidding me?
That's a lot.
That line better move a lot.
So that's what will be interesting so it's Sunday at 2:41 in the afternoon when we tape this. I'll be wildly fascinated to see where that line is this time tomorrow. But right now it's Auburn 9.5. Yeah, twice. Auburn 9.5, and Bovada has picked it up at Auburn minus 9.5. Though here's what's crazy, guys. Listen to this. The money line on this game is minus 110 for both teams.
I don't know what that means.
That means
you just bet straight up to win?
Basically straight up, yeah. All right, Alabama is at Tennessee. That is the 2:30 game. What's your guess on Alabama, Tennessee?
25.
I would say 22.5.
All right, Jay's the winner here. It's minus 20, Alabama minus 20, and I would have bet closer to where you are, Gabe. I would have thought 25 points. South Carolina is at LSU. I don't know what the hell time is. They've got all the times wrong.
I think that's 6 o'clock Central Time on ESPN.
Just throw that one in a hat.
South Carolina at LSU. What would you?
I would say LSU by 2.
I'd say LSU by about 4. Yeah.
It's LSU minus 7.5 against South Carolina.
I just don't trust LSU to score much.
Oh, I trust them to score. I don't expect them to stop anybody.
Well, Brennan's out, isn't he?
Well, he would not have played against Florida. I don't know whether he'll be back in time for this.
Okay. That changes it a little bit.
Those the only SEC games next week? Just 3?
Missouri, Kentucky next week, I know.
Yeah, it's the 3 o'clock game on SEC Network for show.
Georgia, Kentucky, right?
No, Georgia, Kentucky got moved for all the COVID stuff. Now it's Missouri, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, Kentucky's the next week.
Okay, there's no line on Missouri, Kentucky.
I would say, even though we don't have an official line, we have a JG Tate line, which I would say Kentucky 11.
You think that much? I was going to say like 7, something like that.
Yeah, I was going to guess Kentucky minus like 7.5, 8.
Yeah.
I mean, if Basilak is as good as I think he is, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it should be more like 6.
Well, and again, like we're all wrong. Dude, betting on games this year is idiotic. Look what's happened in the SEC. Don't go bet on games, man. And whatever you do, whatever I text you to bet on that morning, don't bet on that.
I'm not over it yet. I had to pay that $100. Gabe with your receipt. Gabe sent me the text.
I forgot to send the check.
Yeah. Gabe's like, hey, you got to bet on this game. I mean, you bet your house, bet your mortgage. Here's the thing. I tried to bet 200 and the guy wouldn't let me. I only bet 100. Thank God.
Well, that Auburn Ole Miss game, man. That's the best game of the day.
Auburn still yesterday had 480 something yards of offense, right? I mean, they had
right?
I think so. I was reading Brian Matthews' story.
Well, in that case, yeah. In that case, I would definitely believe him. 83 plays, 481 yards for Auburn, and South Carolina was almost 200 off that pace. They really didn't piss a drop. I mean, not much against Auburn. They tried to run the football against Auburn. 43 carries, 153. So for me, that's an Auburn win. Run defense.
They had a pick 6, right?
No, they didn't have a pick 6. They had they had 2, interceptions that put them in like the 20-yard line, which is like free points. And then they had another one that put them at midfield, and they ended up scoring a touchdown off that drive. It's just, I think they get a little beleaguered. The defense does. And Auburn's got a very specific problem where they have really 2 defensive tackles. I mean, they have 2 that they like, and the other guys are just not ready. And so those guys are good in the first quarter and the second quarter, and then they start getting their snap count up above 50 in the third quarter, and it goes, and everybody starts running inside, and those guys get washed out 2 gaps, and, buddy, it's on, bro.
What did you make of Bo Nix and Seth Williams apparently having what appeared to be words?
Yeah, it looked that way to me. Bo's getting really frustrated, and, all last year, he never really showed that. And this is kind of a new thing we're seeing from him. It just seems like he's pissed off all the time, which is like weird. I mean, he seems like a nice, even-keeled kid. Seth is the same way. He's just that kind of guy that's like, hey, guys, let's all get along and be happy, man. And now he's like this angry guy on the sideline. I do think that even people who love Seth Williams would say that he dogs it sometimes. Like if he's not directly involved in the play, he'll put together the weakest route you've ever seen in your life. We just call it the Seth route, which is like 3 steps and just kind of turn around and watch the play. He does that quite a bit. There have been situations where he was like actually involved as the second or third option in a play, and then he just quits, and Bo looks over there to throw to him, and he's just chilling. Like it happens sometimes. So I'm not surprised those 2 would kind of get at each other a little bit, but the fact that it hasn't been quelled, that it's got to blow up on the sideline. It seems like a bad situation to try to fix that, and all it does is make Bo worse. He was absolutely hot garbage for most of that game yesterday.
So, I'm always fascinated with this because the schools have to make decisions at the end of years, and this is, as we know, unprecedented times. So Auburn is 2-2. In the eyes of many of their fans, I'm guessing they're 1-3.
0-4.
They've got more L's coming. Obviously, Alabama's on the schedule. There's other games that look like L's on the schedule. Are you at the point in the season where the fans are officially – they want Auburn to win, but the moment the things start to go south, they're like, you know what, maybe it is time for an L. Maybe it's time that the thing just implode. Are they there yet?
Yeah, they're pretty close. I don't think anyone cheers against Auburn, but they cheer against Gus. I think Gus is just they're tired of it, man. Gus said that we're going to hire Chad Morris, and he's going to solve all these problems that we have, and Chad's here, and the offense is not better. It might be worse. Despite them having what I think is a generational talent at tailback. I think they have one of the next, the Carnell Williams at tailback now. Like an absolute stud.
Because we talked, I think at the beginning of this year, we all kind of agreed nobody's getting fired based on on-field performance.
I'm not sure, man. I'm not. If someone's going to do it, I'd leave it to Auburn, and Neil knows what I'm talking about.
But I mean, like, how bad does he have to be? Like, does 5-5 get him? 5-5, Auburn people will be pissed off, but that doesn't get him fired, does it?
That's 3 more wins, dude. I don't know. I don't know they have 3 more wins in them, dude.
But I'm just saying, if they get to 5-5, like, it's not a good season. People be mad, but you don't get fired in this year for 5-5 in the SEC, do you?
Well, maybe at a reasonable place, but Auburn's not a reasonable place, for better or for worse.
Okay, so let's play this out. 5-5 in a non-COVID year would be 7-5.
It might be. Honestly, it might be 9-3. Because you're taking 2 SEC games off the schedule. Let's say it'd be 8-4 probably. Okay.
In a non-COVID year, with COVID never happened, by the way, football gods, if you can make that happen right now, that'd be great. Would Gus have gotten fired for 8-4?
I don't think so, no. But the people on my site would have been in the same boat, just like tired of him and ready for him to go, but I don't think so. I mean, it's still, at the end of the season, they owe him $22 million. Plus whatever they owe Chad, whatever they owe Kevin, whatever they owe the other assistants, plus they have to pay a portion of the next guy's buyout and probably guarantee a salary in the $7 to $8 million range. So, it's a very expensive undertaking. And I just don't think that at 8-4 in a regular season they would do that. But at 5-5, getting shit upon by South Carolina and probably should have lost against Arkansas. And, oh, man, there's more losses ahead, brother.
Jay,
I keep telling my folks, hey, let's just let this play out a little bit more before you start, getting the torches ready to go to the house and tell them how you feel about them. But I know what that's probably going to happen. I know what's going to happen. They're going to lose some games. And if they lose to Ole Miss, dude, they're going to lose their shit, period. Because in their mind, they should never lose to Ole Miss.
I'll throw this out there for you. A friend of mine mentioned it yesterday. So Auburn tanks, Missouri overachieves, Auburn goes and hires former Auburn guy Eli Drinkwitz. You and I both get coaching searches, and we just print money and we'll party together in Joplin. How's that sound?
It would be a wonderful idea, although I'd like to take the party to Carthage if at all possible.
That's all right. Right by the praying hands statue. We'll get a 12-pack sit at the bottom of the praying hands statue.
Perfect situation for us. There is, if things do go bad at Auburn, I know you're kind of kidding, but if things go bad at Auburn, there's 0% chance they would go after Drinkwitz. They'd want to get rid of Gus.
I'm completely kidding. Yeah.
And it's weird how a lot of Auburn people don't even know that Eli was there. Like, he was just kind of a GA at the time, He wasn't a celebrated up-and-comer. He kind of made his own way,
What's funny is that last week in my mailbag, every other question was, Neil, do you think if Texas opens up, they go after Kiffin, and does he take it? Neil, do you think if the Chiefs fire Andy Reid that they go after Lane Kiffin, and do you think he takes it? Neil, do you think that if it's determined that both Biden and Trump are just unfit for the presidency, do you think that the White House offers Kiffin and that he takes it? Kind of along those lines. And then now you think he's on the hot seat? And it's like, whoa. And I know that's
to be fair, every coach that has lost an SEC game to Arkansas in the last 3 years is he's not coaching anymore. There haven't been any of them. But,
there are people.
I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's the one problem with Zoom is that you can't talk over each other. I apologize.
there's actually people that are a little bit unhappy with Lane Kiffin at this point. I mean, even like they're not joking. I know nobody's saying they should get fired, but are there people who are unhappy with him?
There are people who are, and it's mostly older fans. They are frustrated with him because he has changed the program from what it used to be. He's taken away their gray pants. And he's not playing John Rice Plumlee at the first sign of concern because he's coaching to a program, not a team. But yeah, and it's what you were saying about Auburn people think we should never lose to Ole Miss, period, the end. And Ole Miss people think for whatever reason, we should never lose to Arkansas, period, the end. And they also think that because Arkansas sucked the last 2 years, that Arkansas will suck for perpetuity, in much the same way that Tennessee people think that because they were so good in the late 1990s, and they really were, that they should be able to unbottle that at some point soon and be that good again down the road for perpetuity. And that is just not how this shit works.
Have you guys ever thought about how awful it would be to have a job where every day you went to work and you thought, if I don't do my job to the best of my ability, or even worse, if some dude on the third floor doesn't do his job to the best of his ability and it makes it look like I didn't do my job to the best of my ability, I might get fired tomorrow. Like, there's a reason these dudes get paid $3 or $4 million a year because they got to put up with all that bullshit every single Sunday morning.
It's a tough life. I'm not going to lie about it. It's a life I know well, Gabriel. Something else I know a lot about is Cathead Distillery, a place that is a very magical place to those of us who have been lucky enough to spend some time there. Neil and I have been there 2 or 3 times. I have been bombed 2 or 3 times there. And, of course, why wouldn't I? Because Cathead Distillery is where they make some delicious spirits, finest spirits around this part of the country, in my opinion. And they are also champions of independent restaurateurs and barkeeps throughout the Southeast. They love those people. They support those people. And they cheer for those people, even in these tough times. Cathead are makers of the Cathead Vodka, the Blue Cat Standard Vodka, the Honeysuckle Gold Cat, the Pecan Vodka with the Green Cat. They also are makers of Old Soul, the 90-proof delicious bourbon whiskey, which I drank myself out of the other day. I'm not going to judge myself. The Bristow Gin, the Hoodoo Chicory Liqueur. And there is talk now of barrel picks, Old Soul barrel picks coming up at a spirits store, a liquor store near you. So keep your eyes out for Cathead. If you're at your local bar or restaurant, ask for Cathead. Demand it. If they don't have it, tell them you need it, you want it, and they will get it for you, and you will enjoy it to the best of your ability, because that's what I do when I drink Old Soul as my drink of choice. Check them out on the internet, catheaddistillery.com, or at your local liquor store or bar or restaurant.
Tell them that if you don't have it this week, that you've got 1 week. And if you don't have it by next week, you're fired. Because that's how this works. You have 1 week to get better.
Thank you.
John Rice Plumlee would have it on the shelves.
No doubt about
it. That is true. He probably would. Especially if it's in Mississippi.
Hey, somebody brought this up to me yesterday. Jade, tell me if you want me to get a new username on Rivals and just float this on your board. Although, honestly, I know message boards. I'm sure somebody has. Hugh Freeze to Auburn, baby. Liberty's undefeated.
Are you reading our board? Is that what you bring that up for?
No, I'm sure it is on your board, but
of course.
Did it to me. Yeah.
Somebody said, I think Hugh Freeze is a real possibility to be the next coach at Auburn. And I'm like, dude, when Gus just almost like just as a fun little thing, just floated him as a possible OC candidate. Was it last year, the year before?
Yeah.
It was like, no,
under
no circumstance can we allow that heathen in our confines. And now it's like, oh yeah, he might be the next coach at Auburn. Yeah. Stop.
Same thing happened in Missouri. The fans wanted him. The coach wanted him for the OC a couple years ago. And the administration in the SEC said, ain't no damn way that guy's coaching in the SEC.
I got to tell you guys, man, I've covered Auburn and I've covered Hugh Freeze, and that is not a fit.
I don't think it is either. Lane Kiffin's not a fit over here either. Some people want Lane Kiffin.
Kiffin would be a better fit than Freeze because Kiffin knows how to handle media scrutiny. Freeze does not know how to handle that. Listen, he's a very good football coach. but he should stay at Liberty for as long as they'll have him and take the $2 million a year and put that in the bank and be filthy rich, because there's nobody covering you. There's no expectation. And so every time you win a game, it's like, oh, Hugh Freeze is great. Every time you lose a game, they're like, we're Liberty. What difference does it make?
You know that he's thriving with former Auburn quarterback Malik Willis.
Yes.
Who's been playing great for the Flames. And I think people who know Malik are pretty fired up about it. I did not expect him to end up at Liberty, I'll tell you that. But it's awesome.
I think we should tear up all these 6-year, $24 million contracts. Every coach just on a 1-week contract. Every Monday we decide if you get to coach the next game.
Well,
we base it on a poll on the Rivals message board.
a bastion of even-keeled thinkers right there, huh?
65 schools every week are changing coaches. Well, maybe 64. Saban probably survived a loss. But
and the voting is final 15 minutes after the
But the beauty of it is, unlike Survivor, like, you can win your spot back. If the replacement sucks and loses the next week, you get to come back, get another shot at it, man. This could be fun. That
would be interesting. I'll tell you what else is interesting is the people at Pinnacle Trust. They're based in Madison, Mississippi. They've got clients in more than 20 states, advisors in multiple states as well. Founded in 1997, Pinnacle Trust provides detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. What they do is they sit down with you and they're like, hey, what is it that you're wanting to do? How do you want to retire? When do you want to retire? What do you want to do in retirement? And then they build it just for you. It's exactly what they do. They build a plan that's built just for you. It's not some cookie cutter plan. They take care of you. To learn more, go to pintrust.com. It's PINN trust.com. Tell them that Jay Tate sent you. You get 10% off your first year's fees. Speaking of Jay Tate, he's done business with our boy John Edwards at Regency Travel Incorporated. He recommends him. I recommend him. Therefore, he's recommended. You should get in touch with him. If you're thinking about traveling this fall, this winter, there's a lot of deals to be had. And this would be a time, Jay, for you to do some of your artwork here on the Zoom. Probably not. All you got to do is get in touch with him, give him some parameters, say, here's kind of what I have in mind. Here's my budget. This is what I'm thinking about. And then sit back and do nothing. He'll come up with a whole bunch of options for you that you will not find on your own. And no, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. It's my fault. 901-494-3387, or send him an email at jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm due to be going to Europe next summer with John capably setting the tone for our trip, finding us places to go. We've been able to upgrade due to COVID. Things have gotten a little bit cheaper. So we're hoping to hang on there, hoping that everything's going to be good in May. Maybe, I don't know, we'll have to see. I don't like the way that COVID is trending in our country, but we'll see how it works out in Europe. And John has assured us that one way or another, we're going to be Gucci somewhere, somehow, some way. So
my brother says we're still wearing masks in 2 years. You think we're still wearing masks in 2 years?
I'm concerned. Yeah.
Gabe?
I would say I wouldn't rule it out.
But Dr. DeAlmond has spoken, so.
I am an expert on.
I think I'm going to become such the hermit that I'll be even more of a hermit than I am today.
I think it's going to, I will say this, it's just kind of an ancillary point. I think our jobs are going to be different for a really long time.
Yeah,
like the way that we do journalism. I know this show is not really journalism per se, and I don't even feel like really I do a lot of journalism anymore, but it's so different, and it's going to be different for a really long time. More than 2 years. I bet this is like a 5-year thing. And I think some elements of our job will never be the same.
First of all, I agree, but I disagree with one thing you said. I did see GPITS nominated for Pulitzer, I believe. So.
It's huge. Edge.
Hey, actually, you guys might want to redo the intro. Just say Pulitzer nominated, greatest spot in the South.
Why not, right?
Well, can we nominate ourselves? I mean, they can just throw it away, but can we at least nominate it?
Yeah.
Can I have my one just quick little journalism rant? It's very short. It's Dan Wolken and some of Dan Wolken's types. Yesterday,
oh, yeah.
They're upset last night about Nick Saban coaching the game. It's like he took 5 tests. The test before and the test after were negative. He doesn't have it. That's why he can coach. They have a protocol. He did it. Ross Dellinger did a really good story about how the soccer player at Texas A&M is the reason that this protocol got put in place, and it's a good thing. You don't want people being put in quarantine when there's no reason for them to be put in quarantine. You don't want people to quarantine for a positive test when it turns out that they weren't positive.
Tell you one thing, if he has it, the referee in that game has it.
Oh, he was really letting him have it, wasn't he?
Oof.
But he doesn't have it. I mean,
I
you
know.
don't get 3 straight negative tests like that. If the Wednesday test or the Tuesday test or whatever was legitimately positive, you'd still have it 3-4 days later, or you would have tested positive at least Wednesday or Thursday or something. He's been testing every day. That's the one program in the SEC that's tested every day.
Yeah. Nick Saban didn't win that game last night anyway.
No, Mac Jones won that game. Quarterbacks won that game and lost that game. All right, we'll wrap it there with episode 119 of Greatest Pod in the South. We'll be back. I think the plan is to do it again on Sunday. Sunday at 2:00 appears to work. Our little Zoom situation here appears to work. So our thanks to the people at ACS, Clay McNutt, the Beast of Baldwin, for taking care of us. For Gabe DeArmond, for J.G. Tate, I'm Neil McCready. Until next time, take care.
All right, brother.
See y'all.